Good to have you here. This is Omni View, episode 66 from May 31st, 2026. Multiple perspectives, one briefing. Here's the news, the perspectives, and the questions worth asking. Looking back at 6 episodes from 2026 May 25th to 2026 May 31st. The stories that mattered, what we learned, and what to watch next. The week opened with forecasts of unusually high temperatures expected across parts of Europe during the final days of May. Public records indicate this pattern arrived later than typical seasonal peaks, yet carried intensity levels rarely seen at that point in the calendar. Mail Online coverage highlights the event as a notable departure from historical norms for the period. Public health authorities stress the need for hydration protocols and shaded rest areas, aimed at protecting older residents and children. Local governments concentrate on staffing adjustments for parks and emergency services to handle larger crowds outdoors. One question that follows is how repeated record readings shape long-term decisions on holiday staffing and infrastructure. Shifting to institutional integrity concerns, reports emerged of repeated leaks surrounding national examinations in one region. The incidents involved distribution of test materials ahead of scheduled sittings, prompting immediate cancellations after detection. Al Jazeera presents the pattern as a sign of entrenched practices that erode confidence in selection systems relied upon by lower-income households. Families and opposition voices describe how connected applicants appear to benefit repeatedly, while others face repeated financial outlays for preparation. Government statements point to rapid cancellations as evidence that oversight mechanisms can still intervene. Critics maintain that the timing of those steps leaves many candidates without adequate remedies before application deadlines pass. The question that lingers concerns which procedural checks can prevent single breaches from reshaping outcomes for large applicant pools. Attention next moved to a targeted strike conducted in a contested border area. The action focused on individuals described by one side as active participants in armed operations. Daily Mail reporting frames the step as a necessary step to reduce immediate threats from organized groups. Regional observers describe the move as part of an established sequence in which each action prompts a response from the opposing side. International reporting places the event against the backdrop of earlier attempts to reach temporary pauses in fighting. The question worth weighing is what independent verification steps can confirm the precise roles of those affected before further rounds occur. In a separate legal development, an inquiry opened into funding statements connected to an ongoing civil matter involving a sitting president. The review centers on disclosure records rather than the original claims in the case. Supporters of the president describe the inquiry as a standard check on resources used in what they view as partisan proceedings. Opposing voices express concern that scrutiny of this kind may discourage future filings against elected officials by raising costs for those bringing complaints. Both positions accept that the inquiry examines financial filings. They differ on whether the timing reflects routine process or selective pressure. The question that arises is what documentation would allow clearer assessment of the funding sources now under review. Later in the week, an order expanded certain operational zones along a coastal strip previously subject to ceasefire limits. France 24 coverage presents the directive as a direct departure from earlier agreed boundaries. Israeli officials describe the adjustment as essential to limit remaining militant presence and reduce future risks to nearby communities. Palestinian representatives and several international monitors note that the change reduces already constrained areas available for civilian movement. Observers add that the step occurs amid ongoing diplomatic contacts that have already experienced multiple interruptions. The question that follows concerns how humanitarian corridors can remain functional if boundary lines continue to shift. The final major thread involved reciprocal strikes between Ukrainian and Russian forces targeting energy facilities. Ukrainian accounts link their actions to prior Russian strikes on power grids serving civilian populations. Russian statements present the responses as measures taken to protect sovereign territory and critical infrastructure from cross-border incursions. International reporting records that each side accepts the back-and-forth pattern while disagreeing on which initial moves constitute escalation. Advocates for the Ukrainian approach note the goal of limiting an adversary's ability to sustain extended campaigns after documented grid attacks. Russian positions rest on the expectation that states will defend assets inside recognized borders against direct threats. Observers on both sides acknowledge that civilian impacts remain difficult to avoid in these exchanges. The question that stands out is which monitoring arrangements could track compliance with any future limits on energy-related targets. Across these 6 days, institutional questions around exams and legal funding appeared alongside recurring security developments in 2 separate regions. The most consequential thread may prove to be whether temporary pauses in fighting can hold when operational expansions continue on the ground. Connections between extreme weather planning and emergency service demands also surfaced in coverage of holiday periods. Tomorrow, watch for updates on whether additional verification steps are proposed for the examination process under review. That wraps up today's Omni View. Remember, the best informed people read more than one perspective. If this show helps you do that, share it with someone who values fair coverage. See you tomorrow. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.